If you're like me, you've got contacts in every single possible format. Email, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And it's becoming harder and harder to stay on top of them. To help me make sense of this mess, I use Smarter Contacts, the free app that automatically creates rich profiles for all my contacts right on my smartphone. The thing I love most about this app are the rich profiles it creates. I can see photos, job titles, company details, and updates from social networks all in one place, all in context. This is a free app and available on all mobile platforms. Head to www.untether.tv/smarter to download it today. Hello everybody and welcome. This is Untether.tv. I'm your host, Rob Woodbridge. This is where we bring you the in-depth, behind-the-scenes, background, interesting interviews and conversations around the mobile industry and what it takes to build an application, build a product, get it out into market, drive that market, get some users, make some money, do all those things that we need to do in order to be able to, pay the rent, pay the mortgage, that kind of stuff. I know it's secondary to some, but for others, it's very, very important. Sometime in May, I think mid-May, I interviewed a company way back then. It was like a lifetime ago. They just recently launched their product at South by Southwest. The company was Localmind. I sat down with Bo Howe, who was the co-founder. He was in Montreal, had suffered through a winter in Montreal, and was coming out the other side of it with this great product called Localmind. And I love this product. They have just released today, in fact, if you're watching this on Wednesday, they just released their version 2.0 of their product, Localmind, and I had the great privilege of sitting down with Lenny Rachitsky, who is the other co-founder. So now we've got the bookends, Lenny. This time from sunny-ish, warmer San Francisco, although it is in the middle of February. Lenny, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this again.
My pleasure, Rob. Not so sunny here. This is not the sunny time of year. Unfortunately, that's what we learned about moving to San Francisco. Not so sunny.
Not so sunny. Well, you know what? I don't. But it's a little bit warmer than it is. I mean,
yes.
You guys, especially Bo, he suffered through the winter of hell, basically that winter last year. So good on him for doing that. You rescued him. You brought him back down to California, and here you guys are, and really about to release version 2 or have released version 2 of the product. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming. We've spent a lot of time thinking and planning and figuring out the right way to do the stuff that we're trying to do with 2.0, and so it's really exciting to be done. Well,
so in a nutshell, I mean, you guys, you're a location-based Q&A platform. Why don't you describe what Localmind is? And we're going to get into what it was, where it is, all that kind of stuff.
So the way that I love to describe it is basically Localmind gives you superpowers. It gives you this ability to know anything.
Can I fly?
What did you say?
Can I fly?
Maybe. Yep. There's actually an Easter egg I'll tell you about in the app.
Nice.
Doesn't quite solve that problem yet. But yeah, so the way I like to think about it is kind of the superpower of knowing anything you want to know about a place right now. Basically omniscience. And the way it does that is it connects you to people that are on the ground right now in a specific location, or people that know a lot about that place that you're interested in. And so we'll get into what we're doing with 2.0 versus what was before 2.0.
Yep.
But that's the basic idea.
And so, I mean, you guys launched at South by Southwest last year, and it's taken, has it taken really that long to kind of cement what version 2 should be? Has it taken that long?
It has, partly because we knew that we had to have a few components in place before we launch the stuff that 2.0 is launching. Mm-hmm. Things like answering questions with photos and having a conversation with someone and basically building up the network of local experts around a city that we've had to basically wait until we had enough users in specific areas so that when you ask a question, with the 2.0 release, you actually have people there that are answering, and we've built up enough of those people. That's kind of the functionality side of it. Beyond that, it was, number one, designing the actual experience of it. It took a lot of time and a lot of iterations with customer interviews to figure out how do people want to do this? Does the user experience make sense to them with the kind of functionality that we're allowing? And then lastly, we had to develop the science behind the scenes of figuring out what do we do with questions that people are asking. So to kind of get into exactly what 2.0 is, because it feels like I'm talking around the edges of it to make it more concrete.
Dive in.
Yeah. So 2.0 unlocks this power of getting answers about any area in the world in real time. What 1.0 had was you can ask questions and get answers at specific places, individual places like a restaurant or a bar or a park. What 2.0 allows you to do is to ask questions and get answers about any area, say a block in a city or an entire neighborhood in a city or an entire city, either locally or around the world.
So what's the? Yeah. I mean, that's a big difference, right? From going from a single venue inside of an area to an area to a city.
Yep.
What was the reasoning behind kind of pulling back like that?
Yeah, I would say from the beginning we knew we had to have something like this, because the problem of knowing for a user, the problem of I don't know what's happening at one particular venue, it's a problem, and when you need that answer, it's incredible that it exists, and it's a miracle you can find out in real time what's happening at a specific bar right now. But that problem doesn't come up often. It's not a common problem that we have. And so we knew that we had to expand on the use cases that Localmind solves in order for the app to be consistently useful, in order for the app to not kind of fall to the wayside of all the other apps that are out there. So that's one main reason. Two is we saw people using Localmind this way. From the first time we launched it, people wanted to get advice on where should I go for a good date spot in the city, what's a cool cafe in this area where I can work with Wi-Fi. And people are doing that, just sending questions to like random cafes around town or to random pins in a city, and hoping that someone that knows about that place could give them advice about that area in general. And so we just knew that had to exist, and so we started working on that probably 5-6 months ago.
And then this is what it's come to. So I mean, it might sound so simple, right? Like pinpoint a location, send a question, get a response based on other people who have checked in or experts who have responded. But as you said, there's a science behind going through this process of determining who to send the question to, and then if that person isn't available or doesn't answer in a timely manner, you've got to kind of pass that question on through a daisy chain to be able to get to your answer, else because that's your bread and butter.
Right. Exactly. So some of the science that goes into it, and I'll get into some of it. So, okay.
Just your secrets, Lenny, that's all.
Yeah. Just
come on. We're all friends here. Pull a cup of coffee. Go ahead.
We're actually working on a patent around a lot of this stuff, and so what's interesting about a patent is that it all goes public, right? You have to reveal exactly what you're doing in order to get the patent, and so we're not worried about exposing a lot of this stuff. It's a part of the entire puzzle, and so we're excited about getting it out there as much as possible to get feedback and to understand how to actually improve on the ideas that we've had so far. So it's not it's not total secrets, but just to give you a sense of what goes into figuring out the stuff that we had to figure out. Say you're in San Francisco and you're looking for what's the best, bar in San Francisco. Or let's make it a little more specific. What's the best hookah bar in San Francisco? There's hundreds of people that are Localmind users, thousands of people, Localmind users that are in San Francisco. How do we figure out, when you ask that question around the entire city, who to send that question to? So what we do is we look at things like who's checked in at the most hookah bars in the city. Not only the most hookah bars, but the most hookah bars distributed across the city, not just in one little area like Soma. And so we give you a lot more credit for diversity in a city versus total check-ins and things like that. We also look at how recently has this person been at a hookah bar. We look at how many questions has this person answered about hookah bars in the past, and then more importantly, how many of his questions and her questions have been liked by other people, how quickly they respond, how many times their questions and other questions that they've asked have been flagged by other people, how many other hookah bars they've been to in other parts of town. So all that goes into this big algorithm that we've come up with that takes all the possible users, whittles them down to who's available and likely to give you an answer quickly, then sorts them based on a lot of these metrics that we talked about, and then picks. What's really cool about what we ended up doing at the end of picking the number of people to send the question to, you got to find that balance between help the user get an actual answer quickly, and I don't want to bug too many people in Localmind every time that someone has a question. And so we basically engineered it to say we want to pick the n number of people that will have a 95% chance likelihood of giving you 2 answers in 5 minutes, which is complicated, but basically we pick the number of people that we think will give you at least 2 answers quickly based on their past experience and their past behavior. And we're still playing with a lot of those numbers and looking at ways to improve it, but that's kind of a part of what we spent a lot of time on.
So, I mean, it's fascinating because, an algorithm like this requires obviously a considerable amount of tweaking. You play with it, you test it, you see how it reacts. And I mean, how do you guys, and this is for application developers who are building this kind of algorithm, how do you test something like that? Do you pull in a select small group of friendlies? Do you become an expert at hookah bars and you just kind of do that? Or, I mean, what's the process that you guys went through?
There's 2 parts. One is customer interviews and customer development things, which is more on the usability side of it, where we show mock-ups. Here's how the app would work. What would you tap? What do you think this is going to do? Things like that, which is really important. We spent a lot of time on, does this make sense to people as a problem? Does this make sense as a way to use the app? But in terms of kind of the back-end science of it, our iOS guy, he's a genius. And
hands down. What, isn't he Canadian?
Hands down. He's Canadian from Montreal.
Of course he is. Of course he's a genius. You don't even have to say that. He's Canadian.
Obviously. It's redundant.
It is.
And Bo, my co-founder, is really good at these things too. And so what we did is we took all the data that we've had on our users' check-ins. And basically, we're actually going to be blogging about this in the next few weeks.
That's great.
Created this model that takes all their check-ins, divides, I'm not sure how much I can get into all this, but basically divides up the city into this grid, shows us, based on different models, where they become experts over time based on different constants and different formulas that we were experimenting with. And so at the end of it, you get this map of San Francisco, and it shows Rob's an expert at these parts of town based on all the check-ins that we've seen Rob have. And then we look at the check-ins and try to understand, does this actually make sense? He's checked in at 14 hookah bars all over San Francisco. It makes sense that he's a hookah bar expert. So there's a lot of modeling and a lot of testing. And I don't know what the quote is, something like no product plan survives first contact with the customer. Yeah. And so there's only so much we wanted to do modeling until we actually released it and put it out there. And so what we did actually is the stuff that's coming out today has been live in the Bay Area secretly for the past couple weeks, so that we can actually test a lot of these things to make sure they're actually working in real time. And so we've already tweaked a number of the formulas and some of the constants, and it's incredibly successful so far. It's pretty awesome to see almost everybody get an answer, at least one answer to their question really quickly, and get really good answers. And so
the question is obviously, when you look at something like this, when you guys are in the process of developing this, and you start to test it, the great thing about this is that because it's an algorithm, the adjustments happen on the server side. It's not on the client side. So what we're going to see, I mean, what I'm going to anticipate that we're going to see is that everybody download the application, you start using it, you're going to be watching this and adjusting the algorithms based on the number of questions that go out errantly or don't get responded, because you can tweak that, right?
Yeah, that's the best part of a lot of this, and we did as much as we could on the client side to support changes on the back end. Yeah. One of the examples, when you send a question, we actually show you who got your question, so you can look at their profiles, you can understand why they got the question. We also tell you how long you should expect to wait to get an answer, and so that kind of calculation happens in real time based on their previous history and experience. And what's cool about that is all those little components of that, we call it the hooray screen, because it's like, hooray, you sent your question. Yeah. We can change on the back end, and the client side shows whatever we tell it to show. So we spent a lot of time trying to finagle as much as we can into the back end so that we could do exactly this. So you're exactly right. The back end changes is really powerful.
How different is this from version 1? I mean, when you take into consideration that you've gone from venues to geographic, I mean, basically these are geofences around neighborhoods and around cities,
right?
But how different is even the thinking that went into this?
I'd say that we're basically at the point where any time you're going out, anytime you want to know anything about a place, Localmind can help you with that. We used to pitch that, and we used to think that we had that, but turns out we didn't.
It's honest. I like that.
Yeah, it's great and it was useful, but it just wasn't useful often. When it was useful, incredible, love it, but it just didn't happen often for people, which is the number one problem with iPhone apps is they actually aren't useful consistently. They're fun for a few weeks and then forget it, I'm moving on to the next thing. And so that's why we spend so much time on this release is we want to make sure we're solving actual problems for people that come up often.
Yep.
Then you have to get into remind them that it exists whenever they have that problem. That's the next step. But number one is actually create a product that's useful consistently. And we feel like we're very much there, that any question you have when you're going out, when you're trying to figure out what to do, and you're trying to find out what's happening at a specific place right now, Localmind can help you with that and helps you with that instantly and quickly and easily.
But what happens with, I mean, it's interesting, that how, it would seem to me that people would jump onto this if they got one single question answered. Is that what it takes, or how many questions does it take for people to kind of decide that I'm hooked?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've exactly found that. As soon as you get one question answered, you've recognized, holy crap, this is amazing. Still, unfortunately, people forget and it leaves your mind. Like Foursquare had that problem initially, and Yelp had that problem, I'm sure, initially, is like, oh yeah, there's a service that gives me reviews of restaurants.
Yep.
All right, maybe I should open it up. And so you got to get to that point where it sticks in your mind and connects to that problem. But as soon as you get that question answered, it sticks with you for a long time. And so there's that kind of decay that happens. And so we got to, number one, remind people that it exists in a non-spamming way. And number two, make sure that we're consistently useful when they come in and actually get value out of it. And so what's interesting about the regional stuff, the stuff that we're releasing with 2.0, and connected to that is this kind of thing that we kept hearing from users is they love the app and they love using it. They love answering questions. They love helping people, which we've kind of built the assumption of Localmind on, is that people really like to help people. As long as it's convenient, as long as it's with something that they know about and they can be recognized for helping people, people love it. And so they complain they weren't getting enough questions. I want to help more people, give me more questions. And so what's nice about this is people are going to get more questions because we're sending the question out to more people. And as soon as you get a question, you're reminded, oh yeah, Localmind exists, and then you think about it next time you have a problem. So.
That's the great thing, is that you're right. One question a week or one question a month or every 10 days is not enough to make me feel engaged. And but to tell you that it works, I checked in at a restaurant that I was at in Windsor, Ontario, of all places, and almost immediately I got a question from somebody who said, "Hey, what's the best thing to order at that restaurant?" And
awesome.
I'm not an expert there, but I had some good tuna. So I recommend it. It's like.
And one thing we do actually, along that point that you made, that you're not an expert there, when we figure out the people to send questions to, we pick mostly experts, but we also give other people that aren't experts a chance to build up that expertise. And so we send that question out to people that are low on that totem pole to help them kind of crawl up. Yeah, exactly.
That was me.
Yeah, and so
way low. I got to ask around. The changes that have happened in this industry since you launched a year ago. I remember an early interview I think you did with Robert Scoble, probably at South by Southwest. You talk about the Gowalla. You talked about, it wasn't Quora that you guys compared yourself. What was the Q&A question that you compared yourself to?
Aardvark.
Aardvark. Are they still around?
They got acquired by Google.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Gowalla's gone to Facebook. Aardvark's gone to Google. So how would you classify yourself now? As a combination of
yeah, we still kind of use the Quora meets Foursquare, and especially with this functionality, it's even more in that term, kind of in that comparison. But I've kind of gotten tired of using that. I was doing a pitch at a conference, and I didn't even use I didn't even say Quora meets Foursquare. But one of the judges, he's like, this is some Hollywood pitch where you just take two big ideas and you combine them into something that sounds really good.
And put Nick Cage in there, and you've got it.
We try to stay away from that kind of comparison because it kind of cheapens what we've been trying to do. It doesn't, we're not trying to take two ideas and combine them. We're trying to solve actual problems. But in a sense, that's what it is. It's Q&A, location-based Q&A.
So a lot of people would compare you, certainly what's happened in the last year is, Kevin Rose has gotten into this space with Oink, right? And Foursquare's gotten into this place with their Radar product and as well as their Discover product.
Yeah.
You know, how do you look at those things? These are guys that, you know, a year ago weren't in the space, a year later are in this space.
Yeah.
Whether or not Oink has the legs, I think it's an experiment.
Yeah.
But certainly Foursquare is formidable with their 15
Yeah.
million users. How do you look at those guys?
Yeah, I look at them in a lot of different ways. So one kind of point I always like to make is we don't focus too much on competitors and people in the space. We focus on what can we do to make people's lives better, and that's all we got to solve. It doesn't really matter what other people are doing. It's what can we do to make people's lives better and give them a useful tool. So that's always our number one focus. Yep. But irrespective of that, they're all doing really cool things. You know, I use every app out there to, partly because I'm a geek and I want to use a bunch of these cool apps, partly just kind of stay up to date on what people are doing. So Foursquare Explorer, I use it all the time. So useful. I don't know what they're doing, but something's working.
Yeah.
The thing that that we try to do is not just give you raw data and give you a list of results. We try to connect you to actual people that know what they're talking about, that aren't necessarily your friends. We see that your friend graph is too limited, that you don't necessarily have the same opinion as your friends. You don't really always want to listen to what they're recommending. And beyond that, we don't want to just give you a bunch of results. We want to actually connect you to someone that is local and give you the ability to follow up, to get more advice, and also to give your particular situation an answer, not a generic, I'm looking for
Mexican food within a quarter mile.
Exactly. You know, for us, it's the long tail of questions that we're really excited about. Mexican food in a quarter mile that has vegan options and kid-friendly in this area.
Yeah.
And that's a huge opportunity, I think. And the fact that we actually sit on top of Foursquare and leverage all the stuff that they're already doing, I think is really exciting, because we can add a lot of value to the stuff they're already doing. And you know, we'll see where it goes. It all shake out. You know, we're all kind of walking around in the dark trying to figure out, what do people want? How can we make your lives better? And we're all experimenting and putting things out there, and we'll see what sticks. But it's exciting. Like you said, you know, it's an exciting space. There's so much innovation happening right now, and the only way to figure it out is to just keep trying stuff, put stuff out there, test, iterate.
And you know, like, there's such a large market out there of people carrying these devices. And there's such a small number of people using these services. Even the leaders in this space combined don't equal, you know, half of the U.S. population, right? So it's, you know, when you take all of these guys, except for Facebook, right? They're a planet unto themselves. But when you take everybody else, like, all the big names, like we hear, Foursquare, Instagram, I mean, even Koala had a little bit, Yelp. When you jam them all into like one big ball of users, it's a small number compared to the number, the 6 billion people carrying these devices. No,
that's a really interesting point. You know, it's the wave of the market is growing faster than the competitors and the apps. Yeah. I did this talk in Montreal, actually, maybe, how long ago was it? Maybe 6 months ago, called Mind 2.0. And the premise was that basically we're outsourcing our mind to these things. Yeah. That we're storing our memories in the cloud through the phone. We're starting to rely on these things for you know, directions, calendars, emails, who the heck our friends are, getting in touch with our friends. And so, like, these devices are becoming a source for all our information. And any service or app that's kind of in that world has a huge opportunity to you know, change your life and to become a really, really important app in your life. And so Google is always, there's going to be a place for search engines, there's going to be a place for Wikipedia, a place for Yelp. But, you know, our spaces, I want very specific information. I want to talk to real people. Help me with that. Well, localized, these kind of things, localized engagement in any way, shape, or form, beyond a dumb response. You know, Google's algorithm is stellar, right? And you add that location layer on top of it, it's even better. But there's something about human interaction or real-time, real human-to-human interaction when it comes to this kind of stuff, where you can say, like, ask me a question about how long's the lineup at the bar, or, you know, how long a wait is at the restaurant, or, you know, what is the best hookah bar, or that kind of stuff. And when you start to engage with a human, it changes the dynamic of that, because it's not an algorithm, it's not an estimate, it's a human that's on the other side. That's huge. It's huge. Yeah, and the reason we're doing this is because we learned this exact lesson from the interviews that we did, that people don't really trust recommendation engines. They don't trust just results. And in addition, there's a great quote I heard that 100 blue links, one answer, is infinitely more useful than 100 blue links. And so, and something I've been noticing a lot lately, even Google, that people are starting to put a lot more emphasis on answers than results. Siri, for example, it's giving you answers. It's not saying, here's a bunch of results. Google, more and more, they're just giving you the answer to your result, not links. You know, they're doing Google Plus, here's photos you're looking for. They're giving you the weather. They're giving you
flight information.
Flight information, exactly. And so the other point I was going to make is there's been all this data going out there that people are basically people are not using index search engines as much as they used to be. They're starting to rely on very niche apps like Yelp, like Wikipedia, like I don't know. Basically, they're not searching, partly because it's harder to do on a mobile device, just searching Google. Right, you just want to go direct to the data that you're looking for. Oink, for example. And I don't know if that data is solid, but like anecdotally, I feel like it's true.
You know, I would say that certainly companies like Apple, who are looking at this and looking at Siri and saying, look, we can own search because we obfuscate search engines. We just give you the results through an interface like Siri. But that's got to play well into yours as well. Like if you feed your information into a service like Siri, all of a sudden it's you can almost have a real one-to-one interaction with Siri as the moderator.
Yeah, we're definitely interested in that as soon as they open something up along those lines. We've been thinking about doing, one of my good friends and early Localmind user has been lobbying us to do voice-activated search. You just say your question, translates it, and asks. So we haven't heard a lot of demand for that yet, so we're kind of holding off for that for now, but it makes total sense.
It's coming. Voice, you know, Mary Meeker calls this the year of the ear, right? And certainly when you start to think about the interface that Siri's got, or any of these guys who are doing the voice, Nuance is another company, that interface is just the natural evolution. When I'm driving in my car and I'm driving and I don't know where I'm going to go, I said, you know, where can I eat here that's, you know, that gives me dinner in 15 minutes or lunch in 15 minutes and that there's no wait. And it just... It just taps Localmind and sends it out to the ether, and you come back with a response. Bill, who's in line, says that it's 10 minutes, and it's true, right?
That's it. That's exactly what we want to do.
All right, so this launched today. Great. Any overarching lessons? Like I'd love to leave folks with kind of a, you know, something that you guys overcame as you went through this. Obviously, the development cycle seems to be a long time for you guys as you kind of finessed this algorithm. Was that ever frustrating, or was that ever, you know, were you dying to get this out the door? And what kept you from launching?
Yeah, you know, we thought we had this ready. Let's see, maybe back in October. In October, and we were ready to get it out there, and then we started doing testing and just figured out that it wasn't done at all. And so that was really frustrating because you have to move fast in this industry. And up to then, we were on a torrid pace. We were releasing updates every month that were pretty significant. And so we just kind of took that opportunity to say, you know, let's slow down. Let's stop just releasing features. Let's figure out how do we build something that's consistently useful for people and make sure we do it right, because that's all that's going to matter in the end. And we had enough funding at that point to give us time to really think about it. And so we put in the time and, you know, and did it right. Hopefully, we'll see.
Today's the test, right? Today going forward is the test, and how you guys react is also that part of that test, right?
Yeah, you know, we always see these things as tests. We're not, you know, I think earlier I said we're done. This is not close to being done. This is the beginning of the next phase of what we're trying to do. And everything we're doing now is a test. You know, how are people going to use this, and how do we make it better? And, you know, we may learn this is not at all what people want. Let's try something else. But we feel really confident about it. All right, so in terms of lessons that we've learned over the past year, we've put together a list that we've been keeping that we always check whenever we add new features. And so number one was, users love connecting to other users in real time, which we talked about earlier. Let's see, two is, these aren't in order, just kind of picking out some interesting ones. That trust is one with consistently good feedback over time. That you can't just assume that a service that you present to a user, they're going to trust what the hell you're doing. You have to earn their trust. And so that's why we put a lot of time into partly exposing a user's reputation and expertise so that you can get a sense of what they've done in the past, and partly connecting to a person so that you can talk to them and get more advice and more recommendations from them.
Do you know how long it takes to kind of create that?
That's a great question. I think it's really dependent on, you know, what that information is, how important it is to them, how much it's going to suck if it's wrong. But we don't have,
Like I guess the algorithm's got to play in it. Like, you know, the expert at McDonald's is very different than an expert who's going to pick a good restaurant with a great wine list, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
if you're planning a date, right, you need to trust that person a lot more than what's a good burger place in this neighborhood.
Yeah. And McDonald's is never on that list, I hope, anyway. So. Sorry. You'd lose my trust if you recommended McDonald's.
Exactly.
All right. So we've got humans like to connect to humans. Trust is earned. It's not just a given, right?
Exactly. Another one that I like is something McClure actually popularized back in the day. That users, Dave McClure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. his quote is, and I'm not going to curse, but his quote I think is, it's the mother effing faces, which basically saying put profile photos as much as you can in services. And so, you know, our rule is users respond very well to pictures of other users, and so we try to use people's profile photos as much as possible to make it clear that these are actual people. These aren't just bots asking questions. Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's see if there's one more here.
I love that McClure gets, you know, these pithy quotes like this. I mean,
he's so good at that.
He's just so good at, and everything's got to emphasize for swearing, right?
He gets some attention. No, that guy's impressive. I respect him a lot.
He's direct, straightforward. Yeah.
Okay. Well, one last one here: that users don't expect compensation for answering questions, which is something we've built our app around. Doesn't mean we won't ever try to experiment with that, but it's amazing that people just love helping people. And if you put money into the equation, it cheapens that charity and that help, because they realize, what am I doing working for like 5 cents an hour here? I just like helping people. Don't give me anything for it. You know, I like credit.
Either give me $1 million or nothing. Right? There's no.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
right. There's like a threshold at which it becomes useful and interesting. But
what about gamification? Like, I mean, it's such an overused term, but you guys could do. I mean, you do reward points. But it's more like it increases your level inside of Localmind. But do you start to think about how you can turn that into a currency of some sort?
Yeah, we've been talking about that more lately. We have a very basic gamification layer.
Yeah.
Centered around expertise and karma and doing good for other people. I can say that it's been tremendously powerful or successful or useful, and so we're trying to figure out the right way to improve on it. I think even Foursquare is kind of discovering that gamification isn't going to be the answer for engagement and retention. Exactly. That you have to have actual value, and then gamification is a nice cherry on top that keeps people more engaged when that's not working for them.
It's funny how that's happened, because that's been a shift over the last year. I'd say that everybody was talking about gamification, points and cred and all that kind of stuff, and then in some apps it's worked very, very well, and but most of the time it isn't. It's kind of an afterthought. And now, as the applications become more powerful, these devices become more powerful, the ability to interact becomes more natural. All of a sudden, that gamification part is probably you're seeing is that, you know what, it is about me, writing a review in a restaurant in Foursquare, me answering somebody's question to help them make a decision in Localmind, right? It's really that kind of interaction that creates credibility.
Yeah, exactly. Like actual value that's consistent and reliable and valuable. I think people get tired of the games. Not to say that you don't need it. It does help. It does make it more interesting in certain cases, but you just got to actually have value in the product, unless you're an actual game.
Exactly. Leave the gamification to the games.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like it. What about last question, Lenny? We said we were going to make this short, but we just get talking, and time flies. What about? Are you guys looking at a revenue model for this?
We're definitely looking at revenue models. It's in our world, if you can capture the market and the users, then you're going to lose. And so our focus is almost entirely on retention, which translates to creating a product that people want to use consistently, and growth. And so once we feel like that's solid and we're feeling good about that, then we start actually directly focusing on monetization and revenue. But we have some really good ideas about where we could go once we've got enough users on the platform. The thing that's really exciting about what we're doing is we're in the way of users deciding where they're going and what they're doing. Yeah. And so we're in a great place to influence people's decisions, which is where marketers want to be. Yes. Just like Google knows what they should target ads, what ads they should target at you based on what your query is. That's exactly the place we're at. People are asking specific questions. We can target ads at you incredibly well. And we really want to make sure that these ads are actually useful. They're not just restaurants that you never go to or places that you never think about doing. It's related to what you're looking for and actually useful in some form. And so that's where we're concentrating our time.
You have an opportunity for a very high conversion rate, and
right.
As long as the cost of acquisition is less than what they're paying right now, boy, you're handing them qualified people.
Exactly, it's and they're local. And yeah. What's really exciting about what we have, which we haven't really tapped into yet, is this network of experts in a city and experts in a specific topic, which in a sense become influencers of that type of place in a specific location, which is so valuable to people, right? Yeah. And so targeting those people in a city that tell other people what to do and where to go, huge. So we're going to start tapping into that more.
What about is one of your metrics? Obviously, users is very key, but is it more about engagement? So how many users you have versus how many questions are answered or asked? Because you have a very high conversion rate for questions asked to answered, don't you?
Yeah, and especially in the past 5-6 months, it's been all retention. That's all we've really cared about. We haven't been, public about a lot of things. We haven't been doing a lot of marketing, going to conferences. We're purely focusing on the product. Now that we're releasing this, we're going to start going back to getting the word out, making sure people tell their friends, and being public about everything we're doing. So yeah, retention and consistent value is our number one focus. Now it's going to be more on growth, because obviously we need growth.
Obviously you need to accelerate now. Well,
who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Well, yeah, that's the age-old question is, how do you do it? And obviously it's like stick to your knitting. Don't waver from the direction that you've set. Stay within the confines of the business that you're building. Don't get the entrepreneur ADD. Looking for squirrels everywhere and chasing shiny objects. It sounds like you guys haven't strayed far from that the initial launch last year to the point where now you've launched 2.0, and all you've done is improve that experience, improve the usability, improve the interaction. So this is a linear step for you guys to be able to get it. You've just made the product much deeper. And congratulations.
Very much so. Thank you. That's exactly the way we see it. We've got a huge list of really good ideas that we wish we could implement, but just there's not enough reason to do it. And there's always a potential that one of these is a bigger idea, but it's just, we got to be, strict with ourselves and focus on the roadmap that we've got. Yeah. Five people, one intern.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. All right, so Localmind, localmind.com, available in iOS. All iOS versions?
Yeah, all the stores around the world. One thing I can give you, actually, before we wrap up, is a little Easter egg in the app that no one really knows about. That's pretty fun. So all you do is you open up the map of the app and you shake it back and forth a few times, 3 times to be exact, and see what happens. That's all.
Right. And that's in version 2 only, right?
It's no, it's actually been there for a while. So any app, any version you got on your phone, you should have it. Nice. So just shake the map back and forth a few times.
All right, do that now, all of you guys. Do that. Well, if you're listening to this on your device, don't do it now, but just wait till this is over.
Do it with the volume on.
Do it with the volume on, even better.
Yeah.
It's not going to be some scary face that pops. One of those things.
I'm not saying anything.
All right. So Lenny, they go to for more information, go to localmind.com.
Right.
And just search in any of the app stores, anywhere you are right now. Just look for Localmind and download version 2. And I hope to see you at South by Southwest, and we can catch up there, and we'll see how things. Maybe we'll get an update, a 5-minute update, which will turn into 40 minutes, and of course about how things went with the launch at that point.
We'll do it, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Lenny, I really appreciate you doing this. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Same for me.
And now that I've covered bookends, both of you guys, you and Bo, I'm really pleased, and I'm definitely going to follow up and see how things went with the launch.
Thanks a lot, Rob.
Oh, we've been speaking with Lenny Rachitsky, who is the co-founder for Localmind. Go to localmind.com, search Localmind on all your app stores or your app world or wherever you are, in the marketplace. Download the application, start asking questions, but better yet, start answering questions and engaging, becoming an expert in your neighborhood, your locale, your city, doesn't matter. It's a great app, and certainly find a tremendous amount of value. You guys who are out there watching, listening, wherever you are, thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this each and every episode. And you shouldn't feel guilty for missing one or two, but if you've missed three, go back and watch them because they've been insanely valuable. A great group of guests like Lenny. These are the guys that are changing the way that mobile is being used, that business is being done. Go and listen to this. They're free. What are you waiting for? Lenny, man, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Rob.
On Untethered.tv.